Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk. Of course, today's talk champion is none other than the one and only Jonathan Small. Good morning, Mr. Small. How you doing, sir?
Doing fine, Stan. It's good to be back here again. Look forward to it every particular week to start off the new week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a blessing you have centralized air conditioning, Stan.
Yeah. The old central air works well. It works real good, especially in the middle of a heat wave.
That's an understatement, but you're right. It is a heat wave.
Heat wave. Yeah. The heat wave of 2022.
Well, the combined humidity to go along, although it's breaking today in Connecticut, I don't know about the rest of the country, but the humidity combined. But it's summertime. You got to understand these things happen in July and August, particular. So it come with the territory.
Yeah, it's an important point. It is summertime. These things happen surprisingly every year. But you would think this is the first time it's ever been hot. It's the first time the electric grid has ever been stressed. It's the first time that there's been, this winter, the same thing's going to happen.
Exactly.
Except it'll be cold and it's going to snow. That's my long-term forecast, snow. Blizzard of 2022.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on which preference you like. If you like summertime, or you like wintertime, or you don't care for neither. I mean, everybody got a preference which they prefer. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think me and you would like autumn and spring, but summer is nice too. Don't get me wrong. Summer is nice, but when it's 95, 99 degrees and it's humid and the sun is out blazing, I mean, thankfully you're not working directly in this heat. Construction workers putting tar or whatever they call it. Asphalt.
Yeah, hot tar, working on steel.
Yeah, that just generates the heat combined. Man. You combine that to go along with it. So, working in the centralized airport is very comfortable. The studio is very comfortable. So, you got to take your options what you have. Yeah,
although today I have a press conference to do at about 11. So I got to get out of here a little bit early, Not earlier for the after show.
Right, I understand.
But so I have to go out in the heat. Though I've been out in the heat several times. But to me it's a selling point. Mm-hmm. For news, where a place where there is no news. Well, actually, there's lots of news, but it would seem that major breaking news right now is the heat.
Well, it gives you something to talk about.
There you go.
I mean, that's the number one motive. It gives you, a conversation piece to really address. But was you outside a lot during this past weekend?
I wasn't hanging outside, but that's not true. Actually, we went to a cookout, a birthday party cookout. We were outside for 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
But it was pretty cool because the guy had a mist. He made this thing in it, and it was like mist, like spray. Like you go to the supermarket and they spray the fruit,
right,
or vegetables. Mm-hmm. They had one of those, and it was spraying underneath a tent.
Oh boy,
a tent, and it was quite nice. It was quite cooling.
Well, that person is looking out for the people that attended this cookout
for the guests.
For the guests, yes.
Yeah. But it wasn't there specifically for the guests. But I mean, it was a really cool way to hang out. This was at his house. He had a big tent thing set up, and it was nice.
And he didn't run out of mist. I mean, he had the mist going.
It was hooked up to the water.
To the water, okay. So
like the outdoor hose,
All right.
So it was nice.
Yeah, you can't beat that. I think even some of the football players now, they have mist that blows. It might be the same type of mist that you're talking about.
It's just water. A little sprayer, and like a sprinkler, except very, very fine mist. You wouldn't even know it was kind of there, except that it gets on the chairs, the table. Eventually, everything you have gets wet.
Gets wet.
Yeah.
As long as you keeps you cool and it makes you feel cool too.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you just feel with the mist that you're cooler than you probably really are.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you had a nice time.
It was nice. I've been out during the heat. Yeah. I'm not afraid. I am not afraid of melting in the sun.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, today is Monday, of course, and in our ongoing effort to bring people in the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star, in our ongoing effort to bring Hartford out of the silo, we like to bring to you all interesting guests from around the world and, of course, the country. And so this is Special Guest Monday, and, of course, Jonathan has found for us another person to bring us great information, and I call these master classes because the informer is always well versed. So please, my friends, please pay attention, because this is always great conversation.
Well, good morning to people out there. This morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show, we have a professional person who represents a business organization in the state of North Carolina. She's very polished and brings a lot of extensive information and expertise to many different areas of businesses in the state of North Carolina. The guest this morning is the executive director of the North Carolina Business Council, located, I believe, in Raleigh, North Carolina. No other than Vicki Lee Parker. Hi. Good morning, Vicki. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thank you and J. Stan for having me this morning.
Okay, it's our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Vicki, before we get into our topic of discussion, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and your background?
Certainly. So again, I'm Vicki Lee Parker. Hi. I've served as the executive director for the North Carolina Business Council for a little over 5 years now. It's a rather new business organization. We focus on building, we believe, sustainable businesses that focus on the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. Our mission is to connect, influence, and empower business leaders across North Carolina to help build a resilient and sustainable economy, one that benefits all businesses. So we spend a lot of time advocating for policies and assisting businesses to grow, to be resilient, sustainable. We want businesses that open here to stay here. And apparently I'm here today because a lot of the efforts of the North Carolina Business Council and all the wonderful business organizations across the state have been doing, I think, a very good job in attracting and growing businesses across the state. And the results are really paying off. So I'm excited to be a part of all of this and part of that this ecosystem where we're working with a variety of business owners and entrepreneurs and large companies and executives all together on one big team to make North Carolina a great place to do business.
Well, Vicki, actually, North Carolina ranked number one this past year in 2022 by the Cnnbc report as the number one state to do business. And it ranks high in some other categories towards, I guess, business related, access to capital. I think it's in the top 5 or the top 6 in access to capital, with a tremendous banking system that you have in particularly Charlotte. First of all, what do you think contributed towards North Carolina being ranked the number one state for business by Cnnbc for 2022?
Yeah, sure. So there are a number of things, but before I say that, I have to say I really have enjoyed the last few weeks since that announcement to see our community come together. You almost in the business community, you have to be under a rock to not know about this latest ranking and recognition for North Carolina by the CNBC annual ranking. So it's been a great feeling here to have the business community come together and celebrate this recognition again, because we do work so hard to make certain that our businesses are able to grow and have a great experience here in our state. And so to answer your question, there are many reasons that this occurs. I mean, clearly to be ranked number one, there are a lot of factors that come into play. And we can tick some of them off. Overall, one of the big ones and that I've heard a lot of companies talk about who recently moved here, some of the large companies, is the collaborative spirit here in North Carolina, with the local government working well with other regional governments and working well with the state official. It really has been a team effort. We don't operate in silos here. We do coordinate. The regional directors, they're coordinating with the state leaders to make certain that they have all the resources in place to attract the businesses to our state. And, business leaders who are looking, they really appreciate that. They appreciate that when they come to the Raleigh area, that there's conversation and relationships with Raleigh and Durham, and then, in Charlotte, that we're all on this same team together. So that has been a real important player in this. I think the second thing you will often hear is, the awesome pool of talent that North Carolina has, the workforce. That is a top priority for a lot of the local leaders, the state leaders, to make certain that we have a very top tier, well-trained workforce for the businesses that we are attracting to our state. We are very fortunate. We have a very robust and high-level educational system, K through 12, post-education, our community college system, Wake County Community College, there's are well-known, nationally, and then our university system here as well. So, and, in addition, for businesses that are, as I said, looking for diversity, North Carolina is home to, I believe, over 10 HBCUs historically. And I'm drawing a blank, but our historically Black universities and colleges, excuse me there for a second. I'm so used to just using the acronym. But so we have a diverse pool of high-level, highly skilled talent for workers to work with and engage with.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think I might have misstated. Is it CNBC or Cnnbc? I think you said it correctly.
The poll is CNBC.
Okay, CNBC. Okay, I thought so. I added the M instead of just saying CNBC report. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. But again, when you look at the strengths that North Carolina consists of, with your universities in the Triangle area, your banking systems, there's also, I guess, the Democratic governor working with a common goal with your state, your Speaker of your House, and your, I guess, pro temp. I'm trying to say it correctly, because I guess it's the same thing.
Speaker pro temp?
Yeah, Speaker of pro temp, and then the Speaker of the House working together with the Governor, Roy Cooper. And I guess the businesses is like the common goal that kind of brings, because usually you hear in some states when you have one party against, I guess you can say against one party with another party, you have a lot of friction getting legislation and bills passed. But when it comes time for business in North Carolina, it seems like the Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, along with your legislative, seems to work very strong together towards that common goal.
Yes, absolutely. That if we can definitely say I think that's the area where no matter what party you're affiliated with or where you fall on the aisle, um, making certain that we have a strong business environment and creating jobs is a top priority for all officials here in North Carolina. I think the record reflects it. I was looking in 2021 alone, we had a record a year in terms of economic development. We currently have over 185 economic development projects, and that equates to over 2,400 new jobs. 24,000 new jobs and over $10 billion of investment. So, and that is just 2021. So it's been an astounding year, again, a record-breaking year. A lot of interest in North Carolina, I think for some of the reasons that you mentioned, having a governor and having a state legislator that are on the same page when it comes to job creation and economic development, where again, as I said in the opening, there's a lot of collaboration there. I know we hear a lot of talk these days about division and, right wing, left wing, red, blue. But, I think that it's obvious here in North Carolina that when it comes again to supporting and developing our business structure, there's a lot of common ground. There's a lot of teamwork from both sides of the aisle to make certain that we create those jobs and, build, a community that's attractive to these companies. Recently, you've heard some of the names, I'm sure. I mean, this year, or in the last few years, we've had Apple to announce, they're coming, here and opening and making investments over the next 5 years. I believe over thousands of jobs that they're bringing. But not only, are we having these big companies come in with, Toyota, Fujifilm, that they're coming in and they're creating jobs, which is awesome, which also creates more opportunity for the smaller business ecosystem around them. So we're having that real ripple effect where, our local restaurants, our local retail shops, our business services, they all benefit when we draw these larger companies in. So everybody really plays a real key part here. And part of that attraction, as I, have often said to people, bringing these big companies here has been, the well built out local businesses establishments here, because when they're looking at where they want to go, they also want to see what type of local community is already established. And having such a strong, robust, small business ecosystem has also played a really strong point or a role in attracting these larger companies as well, because they want to make certain that the services are in place for the employees that they bring here and attract here and hire here as well. So it again, it's a huge collaborative effort. Our governor sees that, our state leaders see that. Again, I think it's the area where you see a lot of common ground, a lot of working together, a lot of team playing to make this, to make North Carolina where, really now, but number one place to do business.
Do you like the fact that North Carolina has a term limit, that you can't stay as the governor past 2 terms? I mean, obviously, if Roy Cooper is doing an excellent job, sometimes you would like to continue to see the governor in office, but now you don't have that luxury of being able to vote for him. Is that somewhat of a problem, or that's really not a big deal?
I mean, I think that it's a good system, but and you may be aware. I mean, I think he'll be off a term is different from the presidency, as where once you run 2, you're done. Mm-hmm. But I think he can be off. I'm not sure the exact time, but I think he can be off 1 term and then and a governor is allowed to run again. Mm-hmm. So there is that remote possibility out there. I think in terms for business though, for business growth, again, and I go back to the same theme of collaboration and working. I think the priority on business and business growth and job growth in North Carolina, and continuing to build up the education system that supports that and continue to build up, workforce development opportunities that support that growth of business will continue regardless of who's in that who serves as governor and who's downtown, because I see that as just a top priority for all of our leaders here in North Carolina, creating jobs and creating opportunities for good quality of life for residents is still something I think we all agree on, and fortunately, the formula for that is attracting, larger companies. It's attracting, growing the smaller companies and that are here. And I think everyone, regardless of their party, is on the same page with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Vicki, you mentioned some of the big companies like Apple, Google, Fujifilms, Toyota, which they draw a lot of the highlights towards the national level because people hear and know about those companies. But you work as the executive director with the North Carolina Business Council on probably the majority of the smaller businesses. And you see firsthand that the growth and development is expanding in North Carolina with the small businesses. Could you kind of elaborate maybe on that trend of how the small business growth is taking place in North Carolina as well?
Well, absolutely. I mean, earlier I mentioned the growth of in terms of economic development projects and that being, at a record pace, but we have also experienced a record pace growth for our small businesses, which are, defined as 500 employees or less. So, depending on where you are on that spectrum, you may not feel very small if you have, over 100 or 200 employees. But we do define it based off of how the SBA define it, which again is 500, less than 500 employees. But we have seen record growth, particularly in the last 3 years. Astounding record growth, year-over-year growth. I think we created over, 170,000 new companies last year. This year, we're also set to, break that record. Prior to that, we had over 100,000 new created businesses. So there's a lot of growth here on both spectrums, large companies and your smaller mid-sized company. You're seeing a lot of robust growth. A lot of that is, again, fueled by our population growth, which kind of plays into that as well, because not only are we being ranked, the good place to do business by a number of business media. It's not, CNBC is a great, but, we've been on lists, Forbes magazines and other business magazines listing us as a great place to do business. But we've also been listed on a lot of lists as a great place to live. Mm-hmm. And, and having a great quality of life. And again, the school system for people with young kids. When you listen, and I listen a lot to people who recently relocate here, the first thing they say is that, when they're looking for a new state to move to, the first thing they hear and read is that this is a good place to raise a family. Mm-hmm. It's a good place to bring your kids, and the job opportunities clearly are there as well. So we check so many boxes. And so, with that type of population growth, that also starts to feed on itself and create what we're seeing in the growth of new businesses. And interesting enough, our Secretary of State did a survey recently to take a look at, to survey some of these businesses, these new growth, to get a sense of what was really behind this surge. I think a lot of people assume because, we've seen this record growth at the same timeline as, the COVID pandemic, that, it was maybe relating to people being laid off and that they were doing it because they had no other opportunities or saw it as the last opportunity. But the survey actually showed, a different story in regards to that. And I'm trying to go off my memory here, but the majority of those respondents, I think was well over 70%, were saying that they would, just open these businesses to pursue, new opportunities for themselves. It was not relating to job loss or not relating to, in fact, I do recall there was only 15% that actually said that they were starting a business as a result of a job loss and trying to seek revenue through entrepreneurship, but the rest of them were seeking new opportunities. So it told me, in my estimation, that maybe COVID gave people that time to kind of step back and evaluate where they were and look at some of the business ideas that they've had, some of the goals that they had, and gave them a time to kind of pursue those goals and put some things in place. And they took that downtime as a time to really kind of dust off some of those old business plans and really move forward with those goals. So we're seeing again this surge in business growth, but these are people seeking opportunities. These are people who are bringing, skills and services to the market, which I think, with the growth of the larger companies moving in, and the Apples and the Toyota, and I think we just had another one that announced recently, one of the largest announcements recently, and it'll come back to me in a second. But VinFast, I believe, it's a Vietnamese manufacturing company that announced 7,500 jobs. It is the largest economic development project announcement in our history, in our state history. So we hear about Toyota and Apple, but we're attracting a lot of large companies from all over the world. And so we're going to see the small business growth, continue to feed off of that and grow from that.
That's an excellent assessment when you're talking about that amount of jobs, 7,500 from one particular company. Stan, would you want to jump into this conversation? Do you have any questions or comments you want to make related to this topic?
I'm of course in listening mode, but a good friend of mine, retired businessman, moved to Raleigh several years ago, and everything she's saying is what he was lauding about, coming from Hartford, going down there. But the key thing that I keep hearing over and over again is, is the collaborative effort, working together, and the strength of the workforce, good education system, strong small business, and all the things that are necessary to build. You have to have good foundation. They've got the colleges. So if you got a good education system that feeds into your, secondary and college type education, and then I don't know what to add, because I mean I'm lamenting that in my little town, the capital of Connecticut, there's I wish it were a little bit more focused on doing the things that you're talking about, and even those that might make the claim that they're moving toward that, it just takes so long to prime this engine. This stuff doesn't happen overnight or because you woke up in the morning and decide to have a plan. It has to be well maintained, and that's kind of like what I'm hearing.
Well, actually, I don't know, Stan, if you realize this, but Connecticut ranks 39th towards the number. I guess the state
that's not a surprise.
Doing business, yes, towards the state. So that's not a good number when you rank 39 out of 50. But there might be other factors. Sometimes you rank high in some categories, you may rank low. But overall, if you are not in the top 25 and you're at 39, and obviously our tax structure in Connecticut is a lot different than in North Carolina. You've got those hard numbers and
things along that line. But I'm listening to what she's saying, and then I think about our school system. If the basic building blocks to pour a foundation aren't there, you're in trouble. You talk about building a 120 floor skyscraper and you can't get the foundation together. So if we have problems, particularly in urban parts of Connecticut, with the school system, and we know the situation with small businesses, the appearance of small business growth by putting pop-up shops in empty storefronts is not creating a vibrant small business. And so the things that I'm hearing that are being done here relative to the things that are being done there and are established there, there's a reason why it's working. And so I'm just hoping people are listening.
Well, again, Vicki, like J. Stan McCauley just mentioned, it's nothing new, but when you had the research triangle develop, I think as far back as 1959 or sometime in that span, was that a tremendous starting point towards putting North Carolina in a different direction, comparable to the past, maybe when you was dealing with textile industries, tobacco? And I'm going way back now when you mentioned those type of industries.
No, I mean, I think when I look over our history and the business landscape, I definitely see that as just that real turning point. The visionary thought that went into that to creating RTP, Research Triangle Park, I think is one that has set the standard for how we view economic development in North Carolina, because we have benefited and we have seen the benefit of such a long range vision and planning, and we get to live and see the results of that. So I think that has kind of helped shape all of our thinking here in North Carolina in terms of looking long term in these projects. As well as, looking at what our immediate needs are. But they certainly, RTP has set that blueprint for how to go about building up other areas. And so, I'm listening to you lament about, Connecticut. And, I think, what the visionaries did is that they played their best hand. They looked at what they had land, and that's still very important for us. The acreage is important when you're talking about attracting these large companies. They need a place to build out. They need a place where they can go, that's shovel ready. They need to be able to build these, large campuses. And then, I think they looked at what they had. Yes, we were fortunate. They had, the university system. They had the Duke University. They had the UNC. They had, we had NC State. So we have a lot of really strong universities, and there are many. There are many of them. I hate to start naming names because we have such excellent universities. So they looked at what they had the land, they had the university. So, what to do with that. And so they were very, very forward thinking in taking what assets they had and making the most of it. And I think what we have seen in some of our rural communities and our urban communities is just that same approach, looking at what we have there, what the assets are, and building on those assets, with Charlotte that you mentioned, with the banking industry, so they looked at what was working well and continue to build on it. And now, when you hear, I hear that often when I travel, Charlotte, banking. So building that brand of for your city, and, it's important, but, you have to work with what you got. You may not, your brand is going to be different from someone else's. So I think I always, I would encourage other cities to be just like an individual, be who you are, look at what you got and highlight the best of what you bring to the table, and grow from that space, and and then also build on those areas where you lack. If it's education, if it's universities, then have your state leaders support the local universities, make it, build the strengths in that university so that you can start to attract more real small business, and so that they're not just being props for storefronts, but that you're creating a real skilled workforce for them. In North Carolina, our community colleges play a very vital role. I mean, I talk about the large universities and they're critical as well, but our community colleges are the ones where these large companies come and sit down and they work with them to work out how to train the workforce to work in their manufacturing plants or their biotech industry. So it's on that level where they can have that type of flexibility to help design curriculum so that it meets their needs. Those are things that I think all areas could explore. How do they use their community college system to build a strong workforce for your small and then eventually the large companies that are that you want to attract and grow, and then again looking at how what type of laws you have for those businesses. I mean, other really important thing about North Carolina is that businesses talk about is the cost of doing business here in North Carolina is low. I mean, relatively speaking, our tax rate has been very low. Our corporate tax rate has hovered around 2.5% for a long time. And now we recently passed legislation where that corporate tax rate will phase out to 0%, I believe by 2035 or something like over a few years, it will phase down to 0%. That's attractive for companies when you're talking about 0% corporate tax rate. It's very attractive. And I'm certain, that our developers have, looked at, the incentives, and then they feel that the investment that we get with the attraction to these companies is worth that trade-off. There's a debate about it, but for now, it's a plan that appears to be, working for our state. And again, I think we look at other ways that we, generate revenue, generate, job growth through this incentive.
Well, also, many areas of North Carolina, the Raleigh-Durham area, you have an international presence. I didn't even realize until a couple of weeks ago that you have direct flights from RDU Airport, I guess, in the Raleigh-Durham area to London, also to Paris. And if I stand corrected, that's not the largest airport in North Carolina. I believe Charlotte is the largest airport in the state of North Carolina. But where does the international presence of London and even France? Well, I know London has a big, some type of British, something similar to your North Carolina council. There's some type of British American council in the Raleigh-Durham area or North Carolina as well. Yeah. So where does the London impact, or the London people from London come into North Carolina? Where does that growth come from, pretty much?
Well, that's an area I haven't explored much, but I would venture to say I do know that we have a real robust import-export, industry here in North Carolina. We work. There are a lot of agencies that work hard with our companies to establish that. I do know as well that we have there are a lot of people who come here from Europe to basically tour to learn from us, and I'm certain that there's a lot more activity going on that maybe I'm not privy to. But in my experience with a lot of the businesses that I work with the Business Council, and in fact, a gentleman I was meeting with just yesterday, he's hosting a tour from a university, a group of graduate business students who are here, and who are going to spend the week just touring his manufacturing facility, and I hear of those types of visits and interactions often, where we're hosting business leaders from foreign countries, Europe and everything, to come here. But also, again, I don't know all the numbers, but I know our export, our trade business is very robust. We do a lot of international business. Large and small businesses are engaged in a lot of trade activity. So again, I would say that, there are a lot of really, smart people who realize that to be successful, to be, a place where people want to do business, you got to do business everywhere. You have to be able to do business, overseas. And in fact, again, a meeting with one of our, again, a small business, by terms of employees. But, in my meeting with him, he listed 4 countries that he was actually engaged with and doing business with. And so a lot of our, businesses, they might be small by definition, but they're thinking very globally. And they're acting very globally. So they don't consider themselves as, quote, small. They're acting on a level, an international level. So, again, with that mindset, regardless of what size company you are, it would be obvious that we, clearly would have, those type of, direct flights. And again, Charlotte being the banking and financial, capital that it is, it would be obvious that we would need, and have that type of travel.
Well, again, I wouldn't be surprised about Charlotte. I was a little surprised when you have a direct London flight from Raleigh to London, because you have to have a passenger base for that flight to be profitable. And again, I'm just saying, it caught me off guard a little bit. But I think that's very impressive when you got direct flights.
I think with, again, with Google, which has been here for a while, with all the international businesses that are located here, again, RTP, IBM, we have, SaaS, we have a lot of major tech, biotech industries that's very strong here. So there's a lot of international activity here in the Raleigh-Durham area. So, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay.
I think when we're here, that it only makes sense. I was a reporter in my former life years ago, and I can remember there was a lot of discussion to, expand flights at RDU, at the Raleigh-Durham International Airport. And, so there was a lot of push, again, from the business community to make certain that we had those direct flights to, New York. I mean, well, of course, New York, but some of the places where they would engage with, other business leaders, and making certain that they could easily get here and they could get to the clients that they needed to get to. So, with a huge biotech industry, with a huge technology industry, with a lot of research industry here in North Carolina, that's not surprising for this area to have that.
Well, Vicki, one other thing, when you mentioned about being the #1 state for business, I don't know if it gets overlooked. Where does North Carolina rank towards Black-owned businesses, towards Asian-owned businesses, towards other minority-owned businesses? It's obviously one of the best states, if not the best states, for this past year, for being ranked as the #1 state for business. But how does North Carolina compare and rank when you get into Black-owned businesses and Asian-owned businesses and other minority-owned businesses?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I have to be honest. I think, like with across the nation, we saw with COVID, I think, a lot of our minority-owned businesses took a huge hit. I think numbers were showing that, over 40%, closed during that time period. It's still not clear how many of those, that percentage reopened or has since reopened. A lot of our, minority and Black-owned businesses were not in a financial position to sustain even a 2 or 3 month closure. That we experienced, which we know went even beyond that for a lot of small businesses. So, the financial picture that a lot of those companies started with, at the point of COVID, pretty much put them in a position that, they couldn't sustain it. They could not afford to a shutdown for extended amount of time, because they simply did not have the cash flow, and they did not have the reserves whereas a lot of the white counterparts did have those things and were able to fare a little bit better. I'm not saying they did great as well, but they were able to, sustain. And we just saw that that wasn't the case with our Black-owned businesses. So there has since been, I do see a lot of effort and attention being drawn towards that issue to provide additional resources to help stabilize or to help revitalize our Black-owned business communities. It's an area I personally feel still needs a lot of attention. Now of the new businesses that are being created, there is a still strong percentage of that growth that is being fueled by minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. So what we at the North Carolina Business Council and some other business organizations are really pushing and advocating for is to make certain that the funding that we are seeing come to our state, the federal dollars, through infrastructure bills, through ARP, all these funds that are earmarked, some of it, the funds are earmarked to help women and minority-owned businesses, that those dollars actually reach those communities that need them, that they're not somehow siphoned away, by other means, but that they actually do get to the individuals and the communities that need them the most, and that they're designated for. Because we need all of our businesses to grow and thrive, because we have seen evidence that when all our businesses grow and thrive, everybody grows and thrives. So we are very conscious that this cannot be a community where only a certain group of folks, are supported. We want to make certain that all of our businesses are supported, no matter who's at the helm of that business, that they all, have that access and have that support. And those that need more, then they should get that, because we have just seen that for a lot of systemic reasons outside their own control, that they need that outside support to sustain them. So we make that case that no one is asking for any handout or anything. We're simply acknowledging that we've been operating in a system that has disadvantaged us outside of our own doing, and that system needs to kind of right that level and level that playing field for us. So we've been advocating hard to make certain that our minority businesses are supported, that they're given the attention that they need, and that attention is unique to their experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, Vicki, as the executive director for the North Carolina Business Council, you represent the entire state of North Carolina, not just one particular area. And even when you get into minority or Black-owned businesses and developments, Raleigh and Charlotte always ranks very high on a national level. Do you see some concerns from other areas throughout North Carolina that may not be getting the same type of economic growth and development comparable to the strong areas like Raleigh and Charlotte, or is it more distributed beyond just those two centralized locations?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, no doubt. There is a lot of work to do to move and distribute, those opportunities beyond those key urban areas. It's an ongoing discussion, and I guess that's the good news, is that it is a discussion. It is, there are a lot, a number of business leaders who are asking those tough questions and really looking hard at how to address it. I think the biggest area, and we are seeing progress, is, making certain that these areas have broadband. We got to start really at that very baseline, because wanting, before you can go and, and try to develop, we've got to make certain that they have a way that they're communicating with the world, that they have that ease of access. So we have a lot of rural areas where, I'm sitting here in Raleigh, I can get on the Zoom call with you with ease. I know a lot of business owners, they would have had to drive maybe an hour or more to make this meeting with you all this morning. because they do not have that access, and that's very real life for a lot of business owners and business leaders. They have to drive to a location or drive to some other business where they have a stronger Wi-Fi to conduct business. Whereas, I work here. So that's a real issue. I believe, in our state budget, we did make an effort to definitely to include funding. That the approved budget includes, and I don't want to misspeak the number, but millions of dollars, multiple millions of dollars to go into building up broadband in those areas. And I think that's going to be a first really important step. And I think where the broadband goes is kind of where you're going to see the development go. So that part is going to be real critical to get done and to accomplish. And I think when we can start to move in that and get that system, that infrastructure established, I think then we'll see more movement in those areas and more development in those areas.
Well, Stan, excuse me, Vicki, let me just bring you into the conversation, Stan. I don't know if you just paid attention to what she just said, that the broadband systems in some parts of North Carolina is not as strong. She was able to make this Zoom call very easily in Raleigh. Is that an area that I think Connecticut ranks strong at, in your opinion, that we have a strong broadband systems throughout our entire state? Or do we have some areas in Connecticut that may not be as strong as other areas?
I can't say statistically, where we rank in terms of broadband, but I many years ago, I was on the Information Superhighway Commission for the city of Hartford, and they were talking about the emergence of, the internet and how this was going to affect. But as she talked about broadband in terms of rural, I know there are parts in Hartford that broadband is a very big issue, particularly down on North Main Street. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is, if cities and towns and states are going to be serious about ramping up business within urban America, particularly for, the black and brown segments of the quote unquote minority population, then they have to be able to, strengthen the broadband in those areas. There's an ongoing discussion as we speak about, strengthening broadband down on North Main, here in Hartford. And, we have a mutual friend, one of our producers, who has to come in to do his program when he does it. Because where he is in Glastonbury, the broadband is just so bad.
Oh, okay.
So he can't have this kind of a conversation. So that's real. And what, as she was talking, the thing that came to my mind was, broadband really is the new information superhighway. And just like in where you have highways, and people want to know where the highway is, because if the exit is going to be at X place, then that might be a good place to buy some land to put a little mall or just have some land, because the off-ramps and on-ramps become viable commercial districts. And so if that works in the, in the virtual world, I mean, in the real world, in the virtual world, those off-ramps and on-ramps are broadband. And so if you don't have broadband, you're pretty much on the outside. Right. Because you can have a small business, and if you can get online, your marketplace is the world. It's not just your little local area, it's the world. So broadband is critically essential.
And again, Vic, I think sometimes people take that for granted. Obviously, if you have it in place, you don't really sometimes pay attention to places that do not have the broadband system. But obviously, you just mentioned it's very strong in Raleigh and other areas, but then there may be some other areas in the rural part of North Carolina where it's just not that strong or not even existed the way it needs to be. So I guess when you balance out everything, I mean, there's obviously many strong areas of businesses and development and growth in North Carolina. What is some of the other areas, let's say, whether it's not so much a problem, but maybe a concern that you would like to see improved a little bit better or a lot better comparable to where it exists right now in North Carolina?
Well, yeah. So I guess the big question is, when you're number one, where do you go? But actually, I think probably where what I would like to see us continue to grow and improve upon here in North Carolina is really the mission of the North Carolina Business Council itself, which is to make certain that our businesses are growing sustainably and that they're building up that resilience, that we focus on building companies that are built to withstand the downturns, the environmental issues that we're facing. At the top of the show, I heard you all talk about the weather, you talk about the heat, that there's a whole component that impacts business regarding the switch, the shifts in the weather and the temperature. For example, if we're having longer summers, well, a lot of retails, they buy their clothing a year or two in advance. They are only anticipating a certain amount of time for warm weather, then they're ready to have their winter clothes come in. Well, when you have extended heat and longer periods of summer, now you're running into a whole, you're running out of certain amount and you have now access of winter clothes. So, that's just one example, but, the weather, all these things impact our businesses. So we want to make certain that we have businesses that are understanding and looking at these cultural clues, that the things around them that they need to be prepared for, because we know statistically when you start a business, is typically in that first 3 years, a majority or a lot of them fall off. They're no longer vibrant. By 7-year period, it's at least over half are gone. We want to see what we can do to push them past that critical point, that 3-year point, that 5-year point, so that they're here for the long haul. So we're hoping to teach and develop skills for companies that prepare them for that long haul, developing strong workforce, developing community ties into the community that help sustain them when there is a downturn, so that the community, can help them, sustain through this. Again, just a recent example with a restaurant. It's one of our business members who, been engaged in the community for years. And when he had to close his business for COVID, the community, because he's so well known, they were actually donating money so that he could pay the waiters and waitresses who weren't able to work. That is part of being a resilient business as well. And so we teach businesses that, it's not, when you're engaged in the community and you're giving back, you're building up goodwill for that rainy day. It's an intangible asset, but when you need it, boy, does it come in handy when you have the community, get your back that way. Or if you have already planned for unusual weather patterns, and you've incorporated that into your strategic plan. How are you going to shift gears when we have an extensive long summer or heat wave, which might push up your electric costs? Is there a way you can plan for a more energy efficient business going forward? So we try to, really get businesses thinking long-term, resiliency, sustainability, and looking at, again, the triple bottom line as they do that. Again, people, planet, and profit. So making certain that you're being a good corporate citizen to your community, making certain that you're being a good corporate citizen to the environment, that you are, aware of your carbon footprint, that you're aware of waste, because that enhances savings for businesses. So we try to help them understand that we're not saying do this just for goodness sake, but you want to do it because that helps that third P, which is your profits. If you can save money on your energy bill, if you can save money on waste, then that strengthens your bottom line and strengthens your profit. So, I think that's where we need to, be headed in the future for our businesses, and being, forward thinking on how to build businesses that last.
Vicki, we talked a little bit off of the air. The reputation or the reality is people look at North Carolina as a red state, but sometime the transitionary period, it may be going not so much to a blue state, but a swing state. Is North Carolina classified as a swing state technically? And I say that of importance because when you get into a presidential election, sometime one state can make the difference between who's going to become president or who will not become president. So do you like the fact that North Carolina is a swing state, or is it still a traditional red state? I just want to get your opinion.
Well, yeah, in my line of work, I try to steer clear of the colors because we serve all businesses. So
Right.
so I have to tread lightly here. I mean, because again, we are pro-business. So, but we do get North Carolina gets a lot of attention, and what I hear, I don't hear red or blue. I always hear the term purple is what I've kind of heard a lot, that we're, the purple state. And I guess that's kind of synonymous with the swing state or whatever. But there are a lot of eyes on us for a lot of reasons. Namely, yeah, we do have that, the Democratic, governor with the majority led Republican state. And we've, and I think what has interested people is that you have people to have that means that you actually have people who live here who vote one way for the governor and another way for their local leaders. So so you don't have people who are voting, I guess, straight ticket, I guess is where the interest kind of lies. So that makes it interesting on certain levels, and certainly people want to explore and understand that dynamic, and then also to see how we have been able to work, and how things have how we policies are made when you do have that type of diverse leadership in a state from the different branches. So I think if nothing else, certainly that creates a lot of interest from around, from everywhere. And then of course we picked up another district from the census, so that gave us another seat in Congress. So yeah, there are a number of reasons why people are looking at North Carolina. I won't get too far down the weeds, other than to say that yeah, we get a lot of attention.
Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just want to be upfront. When you're getting a lot of people from throughout the country moving to North Carolina or looking to go to North Carolina for businesses or personal reasons, and you're getting people from the Northeast in high numbers, that's a traditional blue Democratic state, is just wondering, is the transition a little bit different when you have to now go? And I don't want to put you in the middle of this conversation or put you on the spot. Maybe I could even ask you, Stan, do you think that's really overstated or under?
I think if you go back to what she was saying, in the beginning, there's a willingness to work collectively and together. And I think what you may be seeing when you talk about people moving from, the Northeast or quote unquote blue states, they're looking for stability. Businesses need stability. It's not really red or blue. It's can I plan a 5-year plan?
Right.
Or is this plan going to blow up in 2.5 years?
Right.
So, businesses are strategic in their thinking. They're not thinking like the end of the week. They're thinking the end of, 3-year minimum, and then 5-year, 10-year plan. And you can't, you can't project, you can't project a return on your investment if your investment begins to return in year 6. And they're talking about making sweeping changes, 2 years from now that you're listening to. And there seems to be confusion as to what's going on, and there's bickering back and forth. Businesses, they have options, as you can clearly see by North Carolina being number 1 here. Businesses have options. They want to go where they can have stability. And so when you have a Republican governor a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature, there's enough checks and balances in play that you can reasonably say we can see stability here that we can't see, let's say, in Connecticut. If it's all one party, that may work well for the party,
right?
But what happens if the party changes? Then you have no idea what's going to happen. So there's a reason why. And if you look at the states that are doing well, look at how stable they are. Not what party they are, but how stable they are. In my never to be humble opinion.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, obviously businesses, and I mean, it's not just businesses, Stan, it's people too, but businesses is what we're really focusing on this morning about the development, why North Carolina is ranked number one as the number one state for businesses or to do business, which is very important. And I definitely respect you, Vicki, for staying grounded on that topic and not getting, swayed away into politics. When you deal with businesses, what is some of the concerns? Again, I think I asked you, maybe I had asked you that question once already, but do you get some issues or questions that people who you represent come to you towards that, you have to always be on top of towards addressing?
No, I think, again, for most, businesses here, they want to know about, what's available for them, what resources are available for them. Of course, they want, to be put in positions where they can grow their businesses and attract customers. They're in business, so they have their basic needs. They just don't change. They want to make certain that they have access to the funding when they're, at those growth moments where they need to get access to funding. Some of them, need cash flow funding, so they need those opportunities to be available for them at no matter what level they are. And so those are always the top concerns. And then again, having, the resources and, learning what's available for them so that they can, grow and be stable over time. Making certain that there are not any unnecessary regulations. I mean, that's still a big one. Where, if you're a business and you get to a certain point, regulations and rules, depending on your industry, can become very convoluted very quickly when you're having to address regulations on a local level and state level and then a federal level. It can get they can get tangled, and I've heard business owners say they're spending an hour or a day or two just dealing with regulation issues. So I know North Carolina again works very, very hard. I know our leaders work very hard to get in there to address those issues, to streamline it, to make it more easier for businesses to navigate those regulations. There's some that are clearly, very necessary for different, reasons, depending on your industry. There has to be some oversight. But, our leaders work hard to make certain that it's not overbearing for businesses and that they have the resources to help them navigate, those regulations and what they need to do, and maybe try to eliminate some of the redundancy that some businesses experience. So I guess the short answer is that, yeah, we do hear these issues, but again, there are organizations that are definitely working to address those issues and work as closely as we can with businesses to make certain that their needs are met. And we have a robust, again, system within our community college system that provides, each one has a small business center that provides ongoing training for businesses, from anything from accounting to marketing to, how to run a Zoom meeting, technology. And these classes are conducted by experts, people in their field, and it's provided to our business owners, free. It is paid for through our tax funding. So there is plenty of opportunity, for our companies to learn, to grow, and we just kind of help direct them to those resources, to the right resources, because there's a plethora of resources in North Carolina, I'm happy to say, to help our businesses. But sometimes as you're running a business, you don't always know where they are and where to go. So that's why groups like the North Carolina Business Council is here to pinpoint them and direct them to the right resources so they can get everything that they need.
Vicki, that's an excellent way to end this particular segment of the show, and you did an excellent job. Obviously, I mean, you gave a referral that I could have looked into getting the secretary of the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, but I think you had expressed everything that she would have pretty much stated on the show. So I was going to think about putting this topic on hold, but then when I talked to you and listened to what you were saying, I knew you would be the right person. So I was not even concerned. I just want to give you praise for the type of expertise that you had provided this morning. And if there's any last words you want to leave the audience before we end this segment, feel free to do so.
Well, I mean, again, I want to thank you for reaching out. Hopefully you hear my passion. I mean, I love, helping our businesses grow and stay strong. I'm not alone in that, and with that, sharing that passion. There are, again, a lot of great business organizations like myself, chambers across the state, with leaders like myself who are wholeheartedly committed to building up our infrastructure, our business infrastructure, and building up a healthy, strong infrastructure. We're always here. We love to help. That's why I wanted to do this show. We want to help other states grow. I think that has been why we've been so successful, again, where different regions, we don't see each other as competitors. We really, really don't. I mean, of course, every region wants to get the big one, but they know that even if Charlotte gets it, Raleigh still gets some of the goodwill and the credit, and vice versa. And I think that spirit, understanding that if, whatever region wins, that the actual building or found, a business, we all benefit in some way. So we all are on the same team. And so I would encourage, other state business leaders to think the same way, to not see competitors within your state, but to see partners in your state, to see a team in your state. There are going to be some areas that are going to shine. That's how it is on any team. If you're on a basketball team, you're always going to have your star. We know that. But that star knows they still need those other players on that court to win that game. Period. So it's a team. It is an absolute team. They know, even as great as Michael Jordan is, and we all love him, he couldn't have been out there by himself. Right. He just couldn't have done that. So, we need that team, and we need to appreciate and value those teammates. So that's really what I would impart to you guys, as well as to help your business leaders see that you guys are all together on one team.
Stan, I mean, if you have any last words, I don't know if you want to ask anything. I mean, we can pretty much.
I'd like to, I absolutely 110% agree with what she said, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this morning. And
thank you.
Great information. I hope you guys out there are listening. Right. I really, really do. But thank you very, very much. I'm gonna have my friend, a buddy of mine, I'm sure he'll call me after today's program, because he's one of the biggest cheerleaders for business for North Carolina, and particularly Raleigh.
Okay.
So God bless you, and thank you very much for joining us. This morning.
Thank you both.
Okay, thank you, Vicki, very much. All right.
Well, Mr. Small, great interview.
Great interview. I thank you for that, but I like the topic, and I like the agenda that what we talked about also. And I mean, the purpose of this is to give people some information that they are not aware of, and let them learn something about it. And we have a big governor's race here in Connecticut, and I got to be honest, and I'm very concerned in some areas how this last 90 days are moving towards. I guess I hear the commercial break, but I want to get into this a little bit.
All right, well let's jump into that. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Special thanks to our guests joining us this morning, and you all out there, don't go anywhere. It's Morning Talk. Stick and stay. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Independent thinkers are Puerto Rican, Mexican, Peruvian, Indian, Bosnian, Italian, Irish, Jamaican, African American, European, straight, gay, Nigerian, transgender, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, short, tall, skinny, rich, poor, happy, sad. Some of us hold a PhD and others a GED. And though we may be Democrats, Republicans, or members of the Working Families Party, we all have escaped the plantation of party politics and become independent thinkers because we as individuals are more than a party. You see, independent thinkers come from all walks of life. And the one thing we all have in common is that we love, live, laugh, and learn in the city of Hartford. We are the constituents, and the government of Hartford belongs to us. My name is J. Stan McCauley. I'm an independent thinker, and I approve this message because it's time to stop towing the party line and vote for a candidate you can trust. You too can escape the plantation of party politics if you have the courage to free your political mind.
Hi, my name is Nyesha Garcia. I am from Brazil. I help HPU. I help families de Universidade de Harvard Community. Estou muito feliz em participar. É muito importante o engajamento dos padres e madres nas escolas de Hartford com seus ninhos, my children. I love helping family e HPU. Thank you. Gracias. Obrigado.
So my name is Nelky Maldonado.
My name is Ramon El Arroyo.
And we know that Hartford Parent University provides good services and resources to parents in our communities, which are greatly needed because a lot of times our parents, they don't know where to go, how to get information, and being part of this program is essential to them in being successful in their children's education.
And I think that parents should get involved in their kids' education because it's very important. Education is, I always believe, is a success in life. If you got a good education, you can be very successful.
So we encourage our parents to please come join the program, ask lots of questions, and I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed.
All right, my friends. Want to remind you this. Oh no, it's not this Saturday. It's next Saturday, right? This is what, the 25th. It's next Saturday. Saturday, August the 6th is the Taste of the Caribbean and Jerk Festival. It should be lots of fun. Of course, it's down at the Mortenson Riverfront Plaza. So make sure you make your way down there. The event is free. For more information, point your phone at your screen and click on the QR code there. All right, we'll give you all the information you need. They're also on Facebook, so you can check them out on Facebook. Divided by many waters, together by culture. All right, the 17th annual Taste of the Caribbean, bringing you great things happening here in the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star. All right, we're back, Mr. Small. Oh yeah.
Well, again, I mean, I mentioned before the commercial break that I have some concerns with how this governor's race is being played out. It's not so much of what the candidate or what the governor is doing towards, running for office. That's their own prerogative, how they want to run, their campaign. I'm just getting the feeling individually and even collectively that the Republican candidate, Bob Stefanowski, is sort of ignoring some parts of the state. And I think I'm getting the feel or vibe that the Democratic governor, Ned Lamont, I don't want to say is taking the urban sector for granted, but it's just some things, some information, some benefits that I'm looking to get going and see throughout the next 90 days that I'm not really getting the response towards. You mentioned last week that his political director, Brandon McGee, got in touch with you about the black media, that he wants to give black media.
We actually had a conversation with the governor.
Oh, you did?
Black media, yeah.
Okay, so that part has already been
that happened. That was last what's today? Monday? That was last Tuesday. Yeah.
You met with the governor, so y'all had a conversation with the governor.
We had a whole lunch with the governor.
Okay, so then that clarifies
myself,
that. Okay.
The North End agent, the Allen sisters, and Reggie Hale from Inquiring News.
Oh, okay. So
and another young lady from where's her car? The Narrative Project. She's down, I think, in New Haven. There were others invited, but we were the only ones that came.
All right. I wish I could have been there, man. To be honest, Stan, I gotta be. We was together when Governor Dan Malloy, he came to some type of black media event when he was
I wasn't at that. I don't remember that.
You don't remember that? We went to an event.
Malloy was on our program with Kevin Brookman that time.
Yeah, but there was some event that took place that same year. You just can't remember. I forgot where it was at.
And it was just for black media?
Yes. It was other black media sources that was there. I can't remember the location, but it was a while ago. I think it might have been 2014. It probably wasn't even 2014.
I don't know. I remember those kinds of things. Maybe it was an event that black media was at, but I don't remember a black media specific event.
Well, maybe that's what it was. They was just happened to be at the event.
Yeah.
But the former governor, Dan Malloy, was there. This meeting that y'all had with Governor Ned Lamont, it was just like a luncheon event. It wasn't really like.
It was a very good meeting. It was a luncheon event. We spoke very candidly, and it was. I mentioned to him that you had reached out to Bob Stefanowski, and we yet to hear anything.
Do you feel it's necessary that y'all meet with Bob Stefanowski? I mean, I don't know whether he's reached out.
We didn't reach out to the governor. The governor reached out to us.
To us, okay.
So Bob Stefanowski hasn't reached out to us. They also had a meeting with the Latino press, the Latin press, Spanish-speaking press.
Right. Well, if Governor Ned Lamont met with y'all, then I have to really take back. Then, I mean, if it was just a regular luncheon, or y'all had some real issues, agendas that y'all was discussing, I wasn't there.
We didn't necessarily discuss agendas. We spoke. We spoke to him as members of the quote unquote black press, and the importance of including black press. And they
well, here's the reality, and there is a lot of money towards advertisement running a campaign for the governorship. Millions of dollars.
Yes.
And they're spending millions of dollars. You say you didn't have really like an agenda meeting. Do you feel it's necessary for some of the dollars to be spent towards black media for the next 90 days? Do you feel that, that's important, or that's needed, or is that...
It's important that money be spent with black media. And that kind of maybe gets to the heart of our discussion. I don't know what they discussed with the Spanish-speaking press. But we as black media are trusted voices in the community. And there's a very fine line between dollars spent with the press. Because at that point, then the press just becomes a business. For me here, of course, this is not, accesstv.org is not necessarily we're not in this for the profit. The print media is much more reliant on advertising for survival than we are. But of course, the Allen sisters have a legacy with the Northern Agent of their father. And their family legacy is tied to the brand of the Northern Agent. And of course, Reggie Hales has a legacy to maintain with his father's founding of the newspaper. So there's not only the legacy of family, but the legacy of their own names and their own integrity. And it's very, very, very important and very critical that we maintain integrity when it comes to reporting. And so you have to be very, very, and we expressed this to the governor. There's a very, very fine line in terms of what we report. We report the news. All right. Now at this point, I can only speak for myself. I report the news. I don't propagandize. I'm not in this for the money. So that's not to suggest that the others aren't. It's just I can't speak for anyone other than myself. But they expressed the same thing, the same concerns. Because once you start introducing money, you can compromise the news entity. So if it's a matter of tapping into the millions of dollars and getting some of the money, well, how are you going to get the money? In order to get the money when it comes to advertising a political candidate, you have to be careful that you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Now, black press should absolutely be a venue that the candidate gets his or her questions out on if you want to reach our audience, our community with trusted voices. That's different from buying doing like a $10,000 ad buy, and you do pieces of it. As having been a candidate on several occasions and running against money. I know how the game is played.
Right.
So, you roll up in a station with $100,000 worth of advertising. Now, that's not to suggest that they're going to put $100,000 in local press, because they're just not going to do that. They'll put money into it, but they're not going to put that kind of money. But if you put a $100,000 ad buy, and that's just the beginning, and you're not going to spend it all at once. You drop 5 here, 5 there, another 5 here, another 5 there, another 5 there. But you're going to spend $100,000 all the way through, and you happen to be the newspaper or local news. Well, the front office, the news director doesn't run the company. Usually, the management in news comes out of sales, and the television news and newspapers are in business to make money, to make a profit. And so you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. Now you start running negative stories about the candidate gets a little upset. We're spending all this money with you, and you're running us into the ground. You don't even give us a courtesy call, give us a heads up that the story's coming out. Let us have an alternate point of view. I think we'll take our money and go elsewhere.
Right.
Now we start see, and even if it's never said, it's in the back of the mind, because any customer buying ad time can take their money and spend it somewhere else. And so that's always the fine line that one has to be careful of when you're trying to leverage the assets of your news agency with dollars. And it's not limited to political candidates. It's limited to any kind of advertising. That is the reason we don't that's why we don't advertise for the most part.
Well, I want to hear. I want to clarify something. Throughout the next 90 days, do you feel it's needed to endorse a particular candidate? Do you think it's needed towards having them advertise? Is it important? The AccessTV.org network, should they come out and say who they're going to endorse if that particular candidate is advertising with your network? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, the network doesn't endorse anybody. I might.
Okay. You might individually.
Right. If the network endorses someone, that's a real big step. Usually the newspapers, the editorial board endorses, not necessarily the paper. There are a lot of people here at the network.
Right.
And so there are people here at the network that may not be comfortable with an endorsement of a political candidate because they don't necessarily agree with the candidate. So we don't have anything set up in terms of editorial board. Of course, as many might suggest, I'm the major voice on the network, so I can do what I want. I really actually can, but I'm sensitive to the other people here. Now, I don't endorse anybody until I hear what it is they have to say. So, if it depends on what vehicles are set up. Now, I would like to see an opportunity to do Q&A with both the governor and his opponent. That's the only way you can make any kind of
Well, Republican candidate for Governor Bob Stefanowski is highly interested in debating with Governor Ned Lamont. I heard him on a radio station this past week. He really wants to debate and address issues to Governor Ned Lamont. Whether he wants to do it on AccessTV.org network, I would assume he wants the big networks, obviously. WFSB, he would prefer probably that because he was on the highest ranked radio station.
WTIC.
Yes, WTIC.
50,000 watt flamethrower.
Right.
With Todd Feinberg.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, see, that part I understand. That's business. Obviously, you want to get the most viewership. So it did. And,
Yeah, well,
and,
I mean, it's a 50,000 watt flamethrower. It's
Yeah.
the largest station in the state.
Right. I was told that a long time ago that the big candidates, they're going to go for the big networks because that's where the viewership is at. That's they can reach the audience a lot more larger. So that part is fine, but I don't think the black media should get nothing. It should be ignored. Now you said you had
black
a lunch
media. I can tell you, black media will not be ignored by Governor Lamont.
Okay. Now you may be ignored by Bob Stefanowski, or you may not. It's so far he has not responded back to me, and I don't think he's really reached out to the black press. I could be wrong. Now again, they may have their strategies, how they're going about it. I'm not talking to the campaign manager. But again, I mean, a debate, a guest appearance, I don't think that's too much to ask for both candidates that's running for office.
I'm sure they will have a debate at some point.
Yeah, it's just where they're going to have the debate is the question.
I'm sure they'll have debates. They may only have one debate. It would seem to me they probably have more than one debate. I haven't been following that, but usually there's more than one debate, and then both sides have to agree to a set of rules and things along that line, and because if one decides not to participate, there won't be one.
Right. Well, if the state of Connecticut and particularly the urban sectors feel satisfied with both candidates, how they are responding back to them, I don't know that for sure. I kind of like some of the things that I'm hearing from Governor Ned Lamont. Bob Stefanowski, he's very consistent on finding faults with Governor Ned Lamont. I'm not hearing too much about what his agenda is.
There we go.
He's clearly outlining what the governor's done wrong. And truthfully, he has not responded back to me. He did respond the first time, said he wasn't ready at this particular time, but he hasn't responded back. And I didn't have this problem when Tom Foley was running for governor. He was on the network a few times.
Right, and so was the former comptroller of the United States.
Comptroller. David Walker.
David Walker had been here several times.
Right. So
he didn't think it was robbery to spend time with us.
Right. And Bob Stefanowski has received the information. I know he has received it. He just hasn't responded back to me. So again, I don't know. He is claiming he wants to debate and address the issues with Governor Ned Lamont. If you don't have a problem with a special debate show between the two of them, if they're both interested and it fits into...
I would have no problem at all.
And but if they're going to have debates, they're going to look at some big sources first. I would pretty much assume they have everything scheduling how they would like to go on this particular network. But again, this is not like a local citywide mayoral election. This is a statewide governor's election where they got to reach the whole entire state.
If the governor and Bob Stefanowski have a debate at the Vietnamese Cultural Center, everyone in the state will know about it.
Right. Okay.
And they open the door for anyone to come in. Everyone will be there.
Be there, yes.
It isn't where. It's the fact that the two of them are debating.
Yeah.
And so them having the debate at a particular place is a moot point.
Okay.
It's a moot point. So if they wanted to make a statement about reaching out to urban Connecticut, they would have the debate someplace where, brown folk are.
Yeah. Well, with all fairness, I mean, Bob Stefanowski has an office in Bridgeport. He has said on the radio program he's really spent a lot of time in Bridgeport. So, you want to, take a person for what they're saying.
Time in Bridgeport is not the same as connecting with the people of Bridgeport.
Mm-hmm.
I plan to tell Bob Stefanowski that to his face tomorrow.
Oh.
I'll let you know how that turned out.
Oh, okay. So I didn't.
Yeah. So
you're surprising me again. I didn't even realize that. Okay, to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, he knows about the network. He knows about the request. You want to be fair to every individual. If you got something that you're going to say, then I'll definitely take that for what it's worth, Stan, to the candidate. If the people feel the candidates are, at least treating them fair, and maybe one candidate is treating the residents more fair. I mean, this is a whole political. You're going to have people who are in favor for Bob, people who are against the governor, people who are in favor for the governor, people who are against Bob Stefanowski. It's somewhat of a very close race like it was 4 years ago. The polls will indicate that Governor Lamont is leading, but Bob Stefanowski only lost the last time by 40,000 votes. So
it doesn't matter whether he lost by 500,000, 2 million, or 1. The Speaker of the House, Matt Ritter, won by 1 vote when he was running against Kenny Green.
Right.
So 40,000 is a lot. That comes far short of victory.
Short, yeah.
You only take 1. You win by 1 vote.
Well, no, but you have to have a recount if it's a very.
It doesn't matter.
Close.
It doesn't matter. Politics is a lot like many other things. There's only one winner. Trust me. Take it from someone who's lost 3 times. So
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't. Whether you lose by 1 vote or 40,000 votes it doesn't matter. You didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, to lose by 1 vote is a harder pill to swallow because it makes you think, if I'd have knocked on just 1 more door, 2 more doors, if I'd have smiled at instead of being grumpy at that one time, you rack your brain trying to figure out where did you drop the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It just 2 people would have made the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So a close race is a close race. That sounds good, but it doesn't defuse the fact that you lost.
Well, you pick up the pieces of the puzzle. You try to regroup yourself.
You do, and you move on.
You move
Life
on.
goes on.
Yeah. But I mean, you move on to the next election. I mean, you realize what you did wrong.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Then you could lose twice.
Right.
Or maybe 3 times. Just because you pick up and move on doesn't mean you're going to win.
Yeah.
It's just not, you win because the people vote for you. The people express themselves. And I think sometimes what candidates don't understand is that the public has spoken.
Mm-hmm.
I hear lots of people say lots of things, but at the end of the day, it ain't about the candidate. It's about the people and serving the people. So why are the people going with somebody else? You have to ask yourself that question. That's a hard question to ask.
Right.
I mean, it's a great question to ask. It's hard sometimes to hear the answers.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing I could say, even towards this morning's show, changing the topic slightly, is that if Connecticut needs to improve, if we're ranked 39th out of being the best states for business, and you have the governor, he can look at it and say what areas he would like to do to improve Connecticut. The candidate that's running for governor could say he would like to adapt some different changes, which he has already stated that we need to be doing things differently. He will say that part, Bob Stefanowski,
right? That
how Connecticut is being run is not being run the right way.
Right. But I don't like things that are non-specific like that. So so what do we need to eat something different tonight? And I'm tired of the same old thing. And, well, don't you get tired? Don't you want something different?
Right.
Maybe something spicy. Like what? I don't know what that is, but it needs to be different.
Yes.
Different doesn't mean anything to me. It means you don't have a plan. What's going to be different?
Well, even his plan saying, well, we're too much of a regulated state. How are you going to unregulate Connecticut?
Now, there you go, Jonathan. Those are Jonathan questions. Right. How are you going to unregulate it? You don't get to choose. You don't get to unregulate as the executive. Those are legislative things. So, one would think it's in the best interest of any chief executive to move particular agendas forward that are going to be good for business. So failure to move them forward might not simply be only the executive. Right? So what do you do? I mean, there's a lot of working parts here. And I think part of the problem is candidates suggest to us particular things and we just run with. We don't ask any substantive questions. We don't ask probing questions. We don't ask the right questions. Without the right question, you can't get the right answer. And the one thing I hear about you, Jonathan, from many, many different people is Jonathan asks great questions. The question gets the answer.
Right.
You ask great questions and your questions are fair. I could say this, I think, almost without fear of contradiction. That if you called up
David Walker.
Right. If you called up David Walker, he would come on next week.
He would.
Because you're fair and you ask substantive questions that don't waste his time. And he wouldn't think it robbery to come here. You see what I'm saying? So that attributes, a lot of that is attributed to you.
I forgot actually who did David Walker endorse. I don't know if it was Bob Stefanowski or someone, but he had somebody that, he never really endorsed anybody. He was just probably more supportive of one person than the other, but I can't remember exactly who. He has somewhat of a relationship with Bob Stefanowski, David Walker. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have I feel very confident if I reached out to David Walker, he would definitely come on. Even though he doesn't live in Connecticut anymore, right. But he still pays attention to what's going on here.
Well, that in part is my point. And so I'll only say that to say that the questions matter, and they have to be substantive questions. And I find that more and more candidates aren't asked substantive questions, questions that matter. It's great that the American people are concerned about inflation, but inflation isn't the only thing.
Right.
So, what's your plan to deal with inflation? Clock's running. You got 5 minutes. Next subject. We spent a whole 5 minutes on inflation, and now we can move on to other things that affect people's lives, because inflation isn't the only thing affecting people's lives. It just isn't.
Right.
But if you turn it into that, then they can get away with answering questions that they don't have, one, any control over, two, inflation's going to go away eventually. So the correct questions aren't asked. And to me, that's the important role that the press should be taking on. Asking the correct question so that the constituents can get substantive answers whereby to figure out who they want to represent them. And then, having gotten answers to substantive questions, they can then hold those people accountable. You can hold the governor accountable and understand, well, the governor seemed very sincere about moving this forward. What is in the way of getting this done, Governor? Well, the legislature. All right, then now they want to call up the legislature. The governor made these promises. You guys seem to be hindering him. What are you going to do to help move that agenda forward? It involves a an engaged, active constituency. But if the constituency is disengaged, then they're not going to call up the legislators who are the check and balance to the executive branch. They're and it's kind of like, well, we go along to get along. That's I feel more and more that's not the fault of the elected. It's the fault of those who are electing. It's a constituency issue because it's our government, not theirs. It's our government. So they get away with what we let them get away with.
Right.
And so,
Well, I mean, again, if y'all, the black media press, met with Governor Ned Lamont, a lunchathon or lunch event that you had with him, and obviously, you spent some time with him. It wasn't like a 10-minute quick brunch. You really sat down. Now, again, you didn't mention anything about a agenda or anything directly towards some type of policies.
Well, no, we weren't there representing the community.
So it was just there as a meet and greet, and then you discussed.
Well, no. We were there to talk about the black press.
The black press, okay.
And the black press having access to critical information that our community needs. That's our job as the press.
Well, that's somewhat representing the community in one area.
No.
It's not representing the community towards the media coverage.
No. Because sometimes the community has to come under attack by the press. We're not here to represent anybody. We're here to deliver information so that the community can make decisions. We're not trying to tell people how to think or what to think. As the press, it's not our job to represent anyone. Our job is to represent the truth as best we can deliver it. The press is not a propaganda arm for the person or persons that are trying to move their agenda forward. The press is a vehicle of information, often referred to as the fourth branch of government, to keep everybody in check by making public and transparent actions and activities. What people do with the information is up to them.
All right. So providing the information, having access to the information is really the focal point of having.
That's what the press
black
does.
Press, yes.
And the black press is more geared toward and sensitive to the African American community and black community in general. That's because there are issues that are of grave concern to us as individuals.
Well, the key thing again is getting this information, getting this somewhat commitment before the election. I don't like. Oh, that's the picture, y'all. Together. Reggie Hells.
Now, of course, it looks like I'm sleeping here, but I'm not. I'm thinking. I'm contemplating.
Okay.
I'm not asleep.
All right. So he's reached out. Yeah.
I'm listening. That's my listening mode. It looks like I'm asleep when I'm listening, but I'm not.
Right.
I'm not asleep at all.
Yeah, you want to get some type of commitment before the election. I mean, I don't like this process after the election. Then we'll meet and we'll work on something. I mean, you need something. Obviously, certain things have to happen after the election, but there's things that needs to happen before the election too. Because, once that person has been elected, I'm not going to sit here and say that they can do what they want to do. But they
can only do what they want to do if the constituents have a hands-off approach.
Right.
As it would be like hiring a contractor to work on your house, and you really have he's going to work on your house, and you say, all right, well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to make it better. All right, that's cool. You got the job, and then you just go away. I mean, you got to give them some guidance. You got to be there day to day. Our elected representatives represent us. The governor is the chief executive.
Yeah, but the people he has and will have on his staff could be the linkage sometime. Getting directly in contact with the governor is not going to be easy That's why he has a staff of people, different committees.
So what do you
that
need to
work
get?
with.
What do you need to get directly in contact with the governor or the mayor or the president for?
No, I mean, any issue that you feel is relevant towards either yourself or your community is important, that you want. If it comes, I mean, directly, what you need to get
But
into.
generally, that does not need gubernatorial conversation or mayoral conversation. Usually is at a much lower level.
Lower level, right.
I mean, you shouldn't be going to the top to take care of a problem that's way down here.
You go to the bottom.
Because the first question anyone at the top's going to ask, well, did you talk to so-and-so? No. Well, there's a process, and the process has to give time. Obviously, if the governor or the mayor or the president calls somebody, but that's not how it's supposed to work.
Right.
That's not how.
No, you're right. You go to the local level for most of your issues, and then if there's executive order when the governor shut Connecticut down.
They're right.
That's something that you would like to be able to reach him if you feel dissatisfied. But then again, he has the executive order, so even if you don't like the fact,
right, because there's always someone not going to like what he does.
Right. But that's a big issue though when you shut the state down and you can't operate.
Well, they shut the country down, Jonathan. They shut the planet down.
No, every state did it differently. It wasn't a national. Some states governors did it. Florida did it, then completely shut down.
Right. Connecticut didn't completely shut down. All manufacturing stayed open. All manufacturing stayed open. Pratt Whitney, Electric Boat, manufacturing stayed open.
Okay,
they didn't close down the whole state.
But a lot of your businesses were either shut down or reduced to a limited.
But we were in the middle of an unknown contagion that was global in its impact.
Right.
They had never shut down the country or the planet before. All right. They were starting to shut down parts of China as a means to quarantine long before they did anything here, but eventually became a worldwide effort specifically to keep people from flooding the medical system and breaking the system. That was the original intent. Now, it's always good to look with 2020 hindsight and see what folk did wrong. But that's not a fair assessment of where you're going to go. And so who your chief executive is important. But most chief executives, whether they're the mayor, your first selectman, whether it's your mayor or your governor or your president, just like the Supreme Court justices, you don't know what they're going to do in the future.
Right.
You have no way of knowing. Because the event that you're talking about didn't exist until it existed.
Right.
So no one knows how they're going to react. No one knows. So, I mean, those are things that come up in conversations, but they're fruitless conversations because they don't yield anything. All right. But what we do know is there may be some piece of legislation that you'd like to put forward.
That's
the
true.
Governor needs to sign it.
Sign it. That's important.
All right. So where is your local legislator on particular issues? We don't ask them substantive questions because they tend to be more friends of ours. So we don't want to, I trust him because he's my friend. Well, you're not hiring your friend. You're hiring someone who's going to represent you and helping to move issues forward. So, we're not asking the right questions of the people who represent us. They can still be your friends, but when they on the job, they're on the job. It's not personal. It's not personal. So we have to hold them accountable. And that's the job of the press, is to hold people accountable. But it's very difficult to hold folk accountable if you don't have access. And the black press generally did not have the kind of access. So where was the black press when Lamont was having his daily meetings? Those are the kinds of things that black press needs access to, so that the black press can ask substantive questions. Those are the kinds of things we just need access so that we can ask the questions for our community.
Well, also, I mean, you could look into the fact of the black press here in the capital city. having access to questions towards your legislators. I don't know.
Absolutely.
If, there's a media format being funded in that area that will allow you. I wouldn't have a problem interviewing.
It's not so much a matter of being funded. Reggie Hales made an interesting comment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for the thing. I can't find it. There's right now, I think there's only a couple days to the end of the month for the child credit. Okay, you get tax, rebate or return for the child credit, up $250 per child, up to a total of $750. It's a tax rebate, but you have to apply for it. Less than half the people applied. Now, Reggie ran that in his newspaper, but he expressed what he had to go through to get that ad in his paper was just ridiculous. Now, major media, they got, I'm sure they were reached out to by, entities that place ads, and along with those ads, a buy wasn't even given a second thought. So if black press isn't given a thought as to whether or not they're going to be included, that's a problem. The governor has reached out. The Republican candidate won't come to one of the entities that the governor invited to come to his place.
Right.
So if he won't reach out to us when he's running for office, what makes anyone think he's going to reach out to us when he's in office?
That's what I was definitely thinking about. He's already showing.
He's already shown us what he thinks of us.
What he thinks of us.
We're an unnecessary. We don't matter. To his victory, we don't matter. Well, if we don't matter to him winning, then we don't matter when he's in.
Yeah.
It don't take a rocket science to figure that out.
And I've rarely seen a candidate totally kind of ignore you when he's running for office. This kind of, I won't say this is the first time, but it's been quite a while that I could recall this. I mean, Oz Griebel, God rest his soul, he ran for the last governor's race. He was very responsive. He was an independent. Tom Foley, again, even Rufus Wells was going to be I guess a consultant with Tom Foley at one point. They had a meeting towards some type of urban agenda or urban policy. I just can't recall the last time a Republican or a candidate, this case a Republican, has pretty much just ignored you right up until the last, unless he's going to do something dramatic between now in November, which I'm not aware of. He's pretty much, like you say, shown you what he thinks of you and what he's going to do.
See, here's the problem. The problem is we're here now. So no matter what he does in the future, he can't undo the past. You see what I'm saying? And that's so sad. It's tragic. Because you reached out to him when?
Reached out to him since the beginning of the year. I mean, it was just a general, in the beginning, it was just a general conversation. I mean, what he was going to run for governor, what his plans would be. Up until recently, last week or 2 weeks ago, I even reached out to him a few days ago again, and no response. Now, truthfully, Governor Lamont's staff didn't respond back to me. You say Brandon McGee reached out to you, or he responded to you, his political director. So I haven't really officially heard back from Governor Ned Lamont's response. But again, if y'all met with him, that's still telling me that it's more likely that he will or he would be able to than the other candidate. And until it actually happens, I'm not going to say I'm buying into it. I mean, anything could always happen. But I'm willing to give him more of the benefit of the doubt. There's some things I don't like how the process is going, but, it's a big governor's race. It's a busy scheduling event, but I'm still feel satisfied that he met with the black press, the black media. I just happened to not be there, but again, y'all met, so that's a good start, I think. Is the access to information that y'all looking for going to be implemented? I mean, that's what
I get all kinds of information.
Yeah.
Now I get press release. I get every press release that's released. We get now. I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure the others are getting them because I know I am.
Well, that's good.
So but we're not as much, you know. Well, but nonetheless, and I give the governor credit because I am quite known as being somewhat conservative.
Well, is Governor Lamont conservative? Well, you're conservative.
Right.
He's not viewed as a conservative.
That's my
governor.
point. That's my point. Yet, you know, you got to respect. You have to respect him reaching out.
Right.
And, you know, he was very, very open to, in fact, I'll say now, he said, I thought I was doing a better job, but it's clear to see I have a lot of work to do. And so I'm going to have to rethink a lot of things I've been doing. I mean, that's all you can ask for. You know, to be considered. Right. That's it. You're not the only voice. You're not the largest voice, but at least to consider and to make an admission. You can't ask for anything more than that.
Right.
And so from here forward, we can't undo the past, but we can go forward. And immediately a much better job is you want access to stuff? We make sure you get access. And so that's all you can ask for. And we can't get access to Bob Stefanowski.
No. And it would be one thing if he wasn't on the other media formats and you could say he's just ignoring everybody, but that's just not the case. Again, I understand you have to go with the numbers on the large scale. You know, if TIC calls you and say they need you for this particular day, and I called him, you know, you got to say, well, let's reschedule our event. You know, I understand it's a business thing. The numbers speak for themselves, but not totally ignore you from day one. Don't respond back.
See, what you have to do is ask yourself, who's the black press? Who's the Latino press? You got Telemundo, Univision. There's several newspapers, right? You get several radio stations, right?
Right.
So now, who's the black press in Connecticut?
Well, it's limited to me, Stan. I mean,
that's my point.
It's
so, right, it wouldn't matter if there was only one. If there was only one, there's the North End Agent, Inquiring News. You got the West Indian American. You know, there are several. There's Tom Ficklin down in New Haven.
Right.
All right. I don't know who's in Bridgeport, but I imagine there are a couple down there. All right, but they're few and far between.
And Springfield doesn't count.
Springfield doesn't count because it's not in Connecticut, right? So, if you want to reach the black people in the state of Connecticut, you don't have to look high and far and can't figure out and all flustered with thought as to who has access to black people in media.
Yeah.
Call up the black and the Hispanic caucus. Ask them. They'll tell you.
All right.
And then you reach out to them.
Yeah, I mean,
because you know you gotta.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to see is what's going to come out of something. I mean, I like the fact that y'all met with him, but in particularly AccessTV.org network, because this is the network that I'm part of. So I definitely want to see, whatever your interests are, Stan, that's kind of on you. I like the fact that, you would have no problem with the debate. I like the fact that if the governor came and said maybe Monday might not be the best date for me, we can work on another date. Those are two areas that I would definitely like to know is covered, because you would hate the governor says, look, I can be willing to do a debate. Maybe Monday at 8:00 may not be the right time. Can we kind of look at another date?
Well, the debate has to be set up with the commission and this, that, and the third. I think that it's reasonable to suggest that the governor might be available for an interview.
Okay, right.
I can't speak for Bob Stefanowski.
Right. Well, I take this very serious, the format, the show, and I wouldn't say I would look like a fool if the governor's not on the network and we don't get a chance to interview him. But I certainly wouldn't feel complete or satisfied neither. I'm not here saying the governor has told me he's going to come on the show, but I haven't heard no neither. I just haven't gotten a complete response. But hearing that y'all met with the governor, the black press, that's definitely telling me something. He knows about the network. I don't think the network he doesn't know about. And again, I'm more concerned, obviously, with your network, but the others are important too. What Reggie Hales is doing
absolutely.
is
We're all
important.
We're all important. We all do different things.
Different things, right.
So we're not in competition with one another. We work as a team, so to speak.
That's what Vicki Parker was saying.
That's right,
In North Carolina,
right.
They don't get so upset if Charlotte gets one business deal and Raleigh doesn't get any. They look at it as a team effort. It's somewhat going to help us in some areas at some point. So the fact that everybody here in the black media in Connecticut looks at this as a team, y'all not competing, because you don't want a little enviness and jealousy get into the way. Well, and then that's why I think if it's going to get into money, that's a whole different ball game, because
money is different. Money is not the issue. Money, we're not talking about money. Money is not. All you do is drop an ad.
Right.
Drop an ad. It's just an ad.
But only thing I'm saying, things you would like to say, things are distributed. Not just one source gets the opportunity and none of the other media outlets gets no. You may not care about it that way, Stan.
If they spent the accounting error on black press would be happy. It's not like
right.
The money they spend on the black press is insignificant.
Okay.
And that would be fine with most of the people that are in black press, because we work off of nothing. So, I'm just pulling numbers out the air. I'm not suggesting anything like this has been talked about or anything like that. But if you spent $20,000 with everybody, if that's all the money you had to spend as a candidate, you could plan to lose. Those are ad buys in major television that are just starters.
Exactly.
Starters. They could spend millions of dollars on advertising. Millions,
right.
And so including black press is not diverting any money from the campaign.
Exactly.
Because there is so little black press.
Right.
All right. Now, Latin press might be another subject, because, especially Latin television, because it's not really Latin television for the most part. It's controlled by, the networks.
The networks,
It's
right.
the Spanish-speaking side of the network. So those are network buys, really. Yeah.
Well, I'm concerned with access to
the same can't be said for local press.
Press, right.
For Latin press.
Yeah, I obviously want good things, and I think more important, what I was talking to somebody about yesterday and other people, is you want to be in the inside, you want to have a voice, you want to be connected. You don't want to feel like the legislative or the government, you're on the outside always trying to figure out what to do, who to talk to, what to work on. You want to have some sense of being in the inside. And you don't have to run for an elected office position neither. But, as long as you're willing to do your part, you have something to bring to the table. They feel that black media is important. You want a voice. And again, there's some type of mutual benefit of it. I'm fine with that. But I don't like this fact of feeling like I'm on the outside looking in. at some point. And
Well, that there's the issue. You have to be invited in.
you have to be invited in, right?
Or given opportunity. And I can say, from what I have been told, from what I have witnessed, that at least with the governor, that will happen.
But that sounds encouraging, Stan. I mean, I want to end this on a good note. I don't take government lightly. I think it's, and I know, Stan, you look at local government probably a little bit more than statewide government, but I understand we're on the same page. You see the importance of still this governorship. Who's governor? Who's going to be running the state?
Well, we will find out. It's not over yet, Jonathan. It's not over yet.
All right.
But the show is.
The show is over, okay.
The subject isn't.
All right.
And so I'm sure we will return to this next week. Me and Jonathan. My friends, our time together has come to an end. I got to run out of here, do a press conference.
Okay.
Over at the Bushnell. So you all enjoy yourselves. Have a great rest of the day, Mr. Small.
All right. Thank you. Look forward to next week. Let me work on finding a guest for August the 1st.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Well, my friends, we'll see you next time. You all have a great time. Special thanks to our guest for taking time out of her schedule. We'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.